Right, so for the first one, they're asking us for a limit as x goes to 2 for this function. So we're going to have to check the limit from the left and the limit from the right, since it is a piecewise function. So limit as x goes to 2 from the left of the function, we're going to use the ln of x part. And if you plug 2 into that, you get ln of 2, whatever that is, decimal. All right, and then we're going to do the same thing from the right. So limit as x goes to 2 from the right. So we're going to use this piece of the function, x squared ln of 2. And if you plug 2 into that, 2 squared is 4, you get 4 ln of 2. So they did not come out to the same thing. That means from the left, it's going to one number, and from the right, it's going to a different number. You're going to have a jump there. And so the limit overall would be does not exist. So the two sides do not meet up. Basically, you're just plugging 2 into each piece and showing that they are not equal, and so it does not exist. If they were equal, like say you got ln of 2 and then you also got ln of 2, then the answer would just be ln of 2. But since they were not equal, we do not have a limit overall for that. All right, and then the next one I asked you to do is number 3. So using the graph to the right, so we have g of x and f of x. And h of x equals this, find h prime of 3. All right, hey guys, what rule is this? What derivative rule are we going to need for f of x times g of x? All right, good, nice job guys, product rule. All right, so we're going to write out the product rule and then we're going to evaluate it using those graphs. So h prime of x, it's going to be the first function times derivative of the second plus the second function times derivative of the first. That's just writing out the product rule. And now we're going to plug in 3. All right, so first f of 3. All right, f of x is this one. We have to find the value of that function at 3, which is not like a real nice number there. It didn't land exactly on a value. Let me zoom way in on that. So the slope of this part of the graph is 2/3. It's going up 2 over 3. So you go up 2/3 every time you go over 1 unit. So we went up 2/3 there. So it would be 2 and 2/3, which you can write 2 and 2/3. What would that be though? 8/3. You can write the mixed fraction 2 and 2/3 though if you want. Or you can figure out what that is as a decimal. I'm going to leave it as 8/3. All right, g prime at 3. Now, derivative means slope. At 3, this slope is 0. So actually, it doesn't really matter what that came out to because you're going to multiply it by 0 anyhow. All right, g of 3 is right here. That point is at 5. And then f prime of 3, again, derivative means slope. We want the slope at that point, which is 2/3. Now, if it was free response, you would just stop. But if it was multiple choice, you'd have to keep going. This part's going to be 0. And then 5 times 2 is 10. So 10/3 if you were simplifying that the whole way down. All right. And then we're going to look at number 4. So find the derivative for this. I threw this one on here because they had this on the testing app questions, and it's been a while since we looked at these. Let me pull out my flashcards here. Hold on a second. Here we go. Derivative of arc sine is 1 over square root 1 minus x squared. Still have all of these flashcards here. Your derivative of arc cosine, arc tangent, all the antiderivatives. I hope you still have those somewhere. Look them over before you go to take your AP exam, because if they throw you one of these, then you are going to need to know it. I do realize it's a lot to memorize, but if they put one on there, you're going to have to know it. So derivative of arc sine, it's 1 over square root 1 minus x squared. And then for the right side, derivative of ln of y, that would be 1 over y, and then you have to chain on dy dx. Implicit differentiation means every time you do the derivative of y, you're going to chain on a dy dx. Derivative of y with respect to x. And then you just have to get dy dx by itself. So you would multiply this y to the other side, which is going to put it in the numerator. So it'd be y over the square root. Again, I just multiplied the y to the other side. That is your answer for number 4. All right, and then the next one I asked you to do was, I think it was 7, right? Yeah, all right, so we're gonna look at this table for number 7. And again, I'm sorry, I went back, I just changed all the values in the table. And then I went to work out the problem and I was like, oh, that doesn't work out. So just change, I think it was a 9, just change that to a 3. I'm really sorry. All right, so using the table to the right, h of x equals f of g, find h prime of 1. All right, hey guys, what rule is this one? This one's not product rule. What rule is this? All right, good, nice job, guys. Chain rule, awesome, you all rock. All right, it's derivative of the outside, so f prime, leave the insides alone, and then you chain on the derivative of the inside. So f prime of g of x and then times g prime. And we're gonna evaluate this at -1. So starting with the inside here, we have to find g of -1, which is 3. So this will be f prime of 3 and then g prime of -1. So f prime of 3 is 9. So this one's 9, and then g prime of -1 is -1. And so that gives you -9 for your final answer. Those aren't bad, you just have to be able to evaluate the table. All right, number 8. For this function, find the derivative. All right, easy enough. It's going to be another chain rule. E is its own derivative, so that's just itself. And if it's like, hey, Miss Cole, it looks like you just copied over the problem. Yep, sure did. That's really all that is. E to the 1 over x. And then you have to chain on the derivative of 1 over x. Now, 1 over x is x to the -1. So if you do that derivative, you're going to bring the negative down, and then it'll drop to a -2. If you do that derivative, again, power rule, the -1 comes down, it's going to drop to a -2. So that would be -1 over x squared. And essentially that's it. But if you saw this written as multiple choice, what they would probably do is kind of like multiply these together. The e to the 1 over x, they would put in the numerator, like multiply that by the -1. So you probably see it written like this, just so you're aware. They would multiply that together and put it in a single fraction, but it means the exact same. All right, number 9. I'm not going to conceal from you, I really don't like this question. This is calculator. We need a calculator for this because that function is just awful. But I put it on here and I want to make sure we go over it because it was on the testing app questions and it's kind of a mean question. There's a lot here. All right, the fuel consumption of a car in miles per gallon is modeled by, and they give you that F of S. So that is the fuel consumption. S is the speed of the car in miles per hour. The car is traveling 50 miles per hour. So they give you that S is 50. And then they tell you the speed is changing 20 miles per hour. So that is ds dt is that 20. So they give you S and then they give you the rate of change of S is 50 and 20 respectively. What is the rate at which the fuel consumption is changing? All right, so they want the derivative of this. So you're going to do the derivative of this. It'll be f prime of s, and they tell you s is 50. So we're going to do f prime of 50. And then you have to chain on, it's a chain rule, chain on the derivative of s, ds dt, which is 20. So you're going to do the derivative of this at 50. They tell you the speed is 50, and then chain on ds dt, which is 20. It's going to be a lot of button pushing. All right, make sure you're in radian mode, or actually it won't really matter for this one because there's no trig, but you should just always make sure you're in radian mode anyway. Where do I get the derivative on the calculator? Where do I get derivative from on the calculator? All right, good, awesome. Math 8. Math 8 and Math 9 are your best friends, right? Math 8, I know it says S, but I'm going to use X. D dx, this function is what goes in there, and then we're going to do such that X equals 50. So I have to type this awfulness. Again, they're not going to give you a nice function. It's going to be an S. 6e to the power x over 20 minus, and then another fraction, x squared over 2400. All right, so that is that horrible, awful function that goes in there. And then it was such that 50, we want to do that derivative at 50. Let me hit enter on that. All right, so there's that. And then we want to multiply that by the rate of change of the speed, which is 20. It's a change what we are chaining that on. So times 20. So 4.298 is our answer there. 4.298. And you wouldn't have to worry about units for that one. Again, it was multiple choice. I just took the choices off of there. But if you're interested in the units, we found the rate at which the fuel consumption is changing. So the fuel consumption is miles per gallon. And we found that per the time unit, which is hours. So it's really weird. Miles per gallon per hour. That was a really strange question. All right. And then lastly, number 10. If all that is true, find the derivative. Okay. E to the f of x, that's going to be itself, and then you chain on the derivative of f. So E is itself, and then you chain on the derivative of f, which is f prime. Equals, all right, 1's a constant, so that's gone. And then derivative of x squared is 2x. And they said find f prime of x. You just have to get f prime by itself. And so we're just going to divide over that e to the f of x. So it'll be 2x over e to the f of x, which is strange, but they didn't actually give you a function for f of x. It just said f of x. So you would just have to leave it at that.